and it's loading. Good to go.
All right. Good morning. Today is Tuesday, November the 12th at 9 a.m. Welcome to this Personnel Committee meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order and note that the public and press have been duly notified in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. As we all know, we're holding this meeting virtually due to COVID-19. Per our new protocol with public comments, any comments that we received prior to yesterday, 3 p.m. Would be invited to speak now. So we don't have any comments. I will move on to, I'm sorry, I skipped approval of previous meeting minutes. Pardon me. Item number 2 is approval of previous meetings minutes. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, moving on to citizens' comments, which we already addressed. None. Old business. I'll hand it over to the city administrator for discussion and consideration of proposals for the RFP for the wage and compensation analysis.
Hey, good morning, everyone. As you all know, we had an RFP process where we were seeking proposals from qualified consulting firms to conduct a wage and compensation study for the city. We opened the proposals late last Friday, and we're very pleased and excited that we received a good number of proposals and folks that were interested in putting themselves for this work. We received 6 proposals, all within or around our budget, which was very good to see. We're excited about that as well. The 6 proposals are included in your packet, over 400 pages. So I'm not sure if everybody had the opportunity to go through each one. We received proposals from PayPoint HR. They're located in Maryland, but they have a local office in Mount Pleasant. Their fee proposals was $20,000 plus travel expenses. That would be the bill at cost. HR Bridging from Easley, South Carolina, sort of local, and their proposal was for $14,000. Baker Tilly LLC, they're based in St. Paul, Minnesota, and their proposal was approximately $17,000 plus $3,000 for any out-of-pocket expenses. Evergreen Solutions from Tallahassee, Florida, $21,000 inclusive of travel expenses. Condry and Associates in Georgia, Athens, Georgia. That was the highest proposal that we received at $29,500 plus $12,500 for a separate benefit study. And Archer Company LLC, based in Rock Hill, South Carolina, for $14,500. As you all know, Archer Company was the company that the city used about 20 years ago when we did a similar process. Ron and I are still in the process of reviewing these proposals, going through particularly their work plan to ensure that it includes what our expectations were as they were presented in the RFP. We're talking earlier this morning about, they all have, a lot of years of experience. They've worked with similar municipalities, so they have experience in the local community. And we want to, our next step would be to talk to some of the local governments that have worked with them in the past and get more of an in-depth feedback and discussion on these proposals and these firms. We have received good feedback from some of them already when we were looking and seeking for places to make sure that they were aware that this RFP was out. We have some communication from some of our counterparts across the state, and really good feedback on Evergreen Solutions. Archer Company also has received good feedback from some of these locations. So that's where we are in the process. After reviewing the proposals, we want to talk to some of these some of these organizations and also talk to them specifically so that we can feel more comfortable with making a recommendation to council. Unfortunately, I don't think that we're going to be ready to have a recommendation for Tuesday's meeting. However, council will have a special meeting in December. So I think that by then we should have done our homework and our due diligence and be prepared to discuss with you all and with council a proper recommendation. So again, I don't know if any of you has any feedback on, after reviewing the proposals. It's a little overwhelming, which is good because I'd rather have more to choose from than not at all. So I think that we definitely have a winner in the group. We just need to make sure that we identify it the right way.
If I can just, I'm sorry, I'll hand it over to my fellow committee members in a second. Just one quick question, just so I understand your position. Your recommendation today is not to take any action, but to give the city staff more time to conduct due diligence, come back to this committee with recommendations that we can then take to city council in December. So I think that would require a special personnel committee meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that is correct. And I know that the committee will be considering special meetings between now and December for other items that are on the agenda that still need consideration. So I think we would be in a good position to consider that at a follow-up meeting once we have a little bit more time.
Okay. All right. And I'm sorry, Councilmember Streetman.
No problem, Mr. Chair. I was just going to comment that I had a chance to just look through the proposals, not really deeply, but just pretty much scroll through all of them, and they all seem to be very well qualified. And I think it's going to come down to what Desiree said. Basically, is some of the recommendations we may get from neighboring municipalities, people who've used some of these companies, and it looks to me like there's a lot of good choices here to go with. So looking forward to see what you come up with.
I totally concur. I mean, there's a lot of information they've provided us, hundreds and hundreds of pages. But again, it's going to come down to what other city recommendations and, how they went through the process and how well they performed with their results.
Yeah. The one thing, at the risk of overstating a point that I think this committee has made over and over again, is that learning from our previous experience, we know that the action planning was not well conceived with our previous engagement. So as it relates to due diligence and speaking with other municipalities, I think really focusing on that aspect, because I think they're all working with probably similar data sets in terms of what the compensation should be. So I honestly, the real art of what we're looking for here is, how do you take data that tells you something and apply it in a fiscally responsible, financially responsible manner? And so that to me is where I would really focus my due diligence on the speaking with references.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
Totally agree.
Great, thank you for that. That, I guess, do I hear any motions regarding that point? We don't need to take any action.
Yeah, not a motion is not necessary.
Okay, well, I didn't know if one of my fellow committee members was already ready to go.
I get a feeling that we're going to have a few meetings in December. We'll make up for our loss of city council and ways and means.
Yeah,
Hey,
we've got to get our special meetings in somehow.
Yeah, no break this month.
All right. Any other comments before we move on to the update on the hiring process for the fire chief? Okay.
Oh, good.
Let's move on to old business item B.
So you all know that we're in the process of seeking resumes and applications for the fire chief. We are well within our timelines, which I shared with you all last month. It's also included in your packet. We have, we're accepting applications through the 16th of November. We're still in the process. Every time we receive an application, we're reviewing them. The current chief is also assistant in evaluating the compliance with existing or required certifications to make sure that those are met as requested in the hiring brochure. And the last time I counted, we had received around 50 to 55 applications. So we feel very confident that we've been getting good applications in. Several internal candidates have applied as well. So that is also great I wanted to share that with you all. So we're right in the process, well within our timeline to accept applications through the 16th, and then we think we'll be comfortable in moving in that direction, meeting our timeline through the end of the year. So again, very excited about the level of response that we've received so far.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, it is.
I'm glad to hear about the internal candidates as well. Any questions or comments from Mr. Mayor, please?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you. So after the 16th review of applications, November 20th, I guess we will be sent those applications for our starting to review each and every one of them?
Yeah, so we'll first do a
Preliminary?
Yes, we'll dwindle it down. I don't know if that's a word, but we'll narrow it down based on the initial review of certifications and within the applications that we've received, and internally we'll make a selection of those that meet those, and we'll be sending that to the Personnel Committee and also the Public Safety Committee, because we talked about last month having both committees involved in the review and interview and selection process. Obviously, all of council will be appointing this person, but I think the last process that we followed for hiring department heads was successful and inclusive of all committee members and council members. So I think that it'll be a good thing to have a similar process this time around. So you should be receiving a packet of those applications soon after the 16th.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think one reaction is before we started with the fire chief, we said, hey, we don't want to start off by engaging a recruiting agency because we feel like we can probably bring in a high caliber of candidates and a high quantity of high caliber candidates. And it sounds like that has proven to be the case. So that is a very good thing. Those recruiting agencies cost $10,000 to $30,000. So immediate savings that doesn't really show up on a budget anywhere, but it's good to know.
And I think it says something in a very positive way that we have a number of internal candidates, that are already on staff that are interested in the position, and it's really a tribute to Chief Graham too for the training and the expertise she's provided for her staff over the years. Because obviously, if they weren't qualified, they wouldn't be extending a resume. So that's good to know too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
No, sir.
All right. Moving on from old business to new business. Item 5 of our agenda, consideration of applications for appointments to boards and commissions.
Righty. I know y'all can't believe it's that time of the year again. This year has flown by, and the Personnel Committee is faced with making recommendations to council for appointments to some of the city's boards and commissions. We've included a list of the applications and copies of the applications and resumes of those folks that have submitted new applications that were already, also those that were already in the queue as of May of last year. We kept those on file and reached out to them, made sure that they were still interested, and included them in the pool that you have in front of you all. For the Planning Commission, we are going to have 3 vacancies. The current members are not interested in reconsidered again for appointment. So we're going to have three new members in the Planning Commission, and we have received originally 6 applications. However, Mr. Marquez, who was a new applicant, and you may remember him, he was appointed. So he has withdrawn his application from consideration. So we actually have 5 applicants for 3 vacancies. For the Accommodations Tax Advisory Group, we have 3 vacancies, and 2 of the current members submitted applications. Wanted to be reconsidered, and the other ones are new members. And for the Board of Zoning Appeals, we have 1 upcoming vacancy and 2 new applications. I had an internal meeting with Douglas Carr, who handles our Planning Commission and the Board of Zoning Appeals, and try to get his feedback from his review of the applicants. And based on the stated need and desire of certain expertise for some of these groups, I asked him to sort of rank them or identify those that he thinks their expertise will serve the groups well. So for the Planning Commission, 3 that stood out to him after after our review were David Cohen, Stephen Corney, and Alexander Stone. And some of the criteria that were used to evaluate that was, 2 of them are engineers, and that's always a valuable field for the Planning Commission. Also, one of them is a member of lives within Waldoons, and that's another thing that we had talked about, wanting to have somebody that represented that community in the group. Philip Pounds was sort of met that role and played that role within the Planning Commission, and after he was elected to council, that void, if you will, hasn't been filled by a resident of Waldoon. So there's also, Alexander Stone and Ray Burns. They both have similar backgrounds somewhat, in that they work with rental companies, short-term rental company and management companies, and with the Planning Commission, that's some of the work that they do. You all recall last year they worked on some recommendations to amendments to the short-term rental regulation ordinance. So that background is always helpful as well. And for the Board of Zoning Appeals, having two applications and only 1 vacancy, I think the committee could interview both. Brian Abel is a structural engineer and also has some technical experience that would be helpful for BOZA. You all know that that's a quasi-judicial group that handle any zoning appeals. For the Accommodations Tax Advisory Group, we have 3 vacancies, 2 members who have been serving for the last 3 years. Again, we're very interested in being reconsidered. And of the new 3 folks, Douglas Truslow, Ted McKnight, and Ray Burns all have very impressive resumes. So I think that also for your consideration for in identifying who you all want to interview and how we go about filling these appointments.
Question, Mr. Chair.
Please, Mr. Mayor.
One of the things I've noticed over the years is sometimes when we put somebody on these commissions, boards, it's almost like a position for life. Whereas as a council member, we're appointed for 4 years and then we have to get reelected. And I really think we need to start thinking about, not automatically renewing for life. I think, after a certain period of time, we should let them reapply. It's just, I think it's something that we should always be aware that sometimes change is good. Sometimes being on there, kind of like when we have congressmen and senators who've been there for 40 and 50 years, that sometimes things change. nobody's served 30 or 40, 50 years on these boards, but I do think that we ought to start thinking about, not giving somebody an automatic renewal every time. And then my second question is, we have several people who did not submit new applications and have been unreachable. How do we handle those?
So the one member from ATAX and the Board of Zoning Appeals, we did reach out to them and notify them of the new process and share with them the link of the application. So I think that, if it's up to the committee, but, if you want to not consider them because of, maybe not having had submitted a new application, which was part of the new process, and it is certainly up to y'all's prerogative to do that, and then only consider those that have submitted a new application and expressed new interest in being either reappointed or being appointed.
Let me back up for 1 second. Unreachable, that means we reached out to them once or twice at least?
That means that we reached out to them via both phone and email, in most cases twice.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could. So has our normal process on boards and commissions been that each member that is coming up for reappointment or whatever has to resubmit a new resume or application? Is that what we've always done in the past?
I'll take this one, Desiree.
Okay.
The personnel committee over the last really 2 years has, to the mayor's point, has essentially said these are not intended to be lifetime Supreme Court judge appointments, but that's essentially what they've become. And so we asked ourselves, and we asked the committees themselves, we asked them to weigh in on what would be a fair process, essentially recognizing and acknowledging the same thing that council members, we have to go up for reelection. We can't just say, you know what, I'd like to keep serving in this spot. And so what we came up with as a policy that's not official, it's what we felt like, there's no code, there's no ordinance behind it, but rather just an operating protocol that we could at least communicate to all the members of these boards and commissions and at least give it a try. And this is really the first year of doing that, whereby we said, once somebody serves for, I think it was 6 years and or 2 terms, whichever comes first, they would need to reapply and they would need to re-go through the interview process that we do for all new applicants. And so it kind of puts everybody, after you've served for a period of time, whether that's 4 or 6 years, depending on the board or commission you've been appointed to, it's sort of a reset and you're still eligible. We would still love for you to serve on there, but you're in the mix with everyone else so that it gives new individuals the opportunity to at least go after seats versus just reappointing the same people year over year. And I will say this is difficult, especially because of I think this is probably going to be the most painful year because this has been the practice for that everyone who serves on these boards and commissions, the practice and the expectation was sort of set and has been set that if you merely say, I want to stay in this position, then you stay there. And so, I regret if anybody feels like they've been treated unfairly, but I think right now we're setting a precedent and a policy that is more fair to everybody. And we had heard a lot of really negative feedback from the community who said, listen, I've been applying for years to be on a board or commission, but there's never any vacancy. So what am I supposed to do? How can I serve? How can I be a part of my community? And it wasn't so much that they weren't qualified in as much as there just wasn't an opening because of the policy and precedent that was set. So this year does represent this first year that the last 2 years, we kind of did some research. We spoke with the boards and commissions, and prior to last year, we said, this is what we're going to do. We didn't implement it last year. We merely communicated after this year, the new protocol and the new process is going to be that if you've served for more than 6 years or for more than 2 terms, you will be asked to reapply.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the clarification. And I want to go on record also. I'm not opposed to this. I think it's a good idea that you all put in place. So And it's the right thing to do, in my opinion. And of course, if someone doesn't submit a new application and doesn't seem to be expressing any interest to serve, then we really ought to take that into account as we move forward here too. So, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. My response to the current members that did not submit new applications or otherwise unreachable, I would, not knowing the circumstances of why somebody might be unreachable or I guess maybe let me start with a question. What's the time frame? When did we first start trying to contact them?
So we first started trying to contact them via email, probably early October, and then followed up with phone calls and stuff around mid-October and a second round of emails.
Okay, so like we've only got two people here, so let's be explicit. Have each of them been contacted at least 3 times since October?
As far as I'm aware, yes.
Okay, because what I would hate to do is have somebody say, I didn't know, I thought I was going to be reappointed. But in any case,
we can try one more time just to make sure. I will say that one of the members from ATAC did reach out to me after the deadline, and she had expressed some issues that she had been having, and she did submit an application after the 30th of October, and it is included in the packet. So I felt like it was important to include, even though there was a little bit of a delay there. So we can, we'll do another effort to try to reach out to both Susan and Pete, and certainly can, the committee can now consider them included in your discussions for interviews. Mm-hmm. And we'll reach out to you all afterwards and let you know what the outcome of that, final outreach was.
Okay.
So really, we only have one right now that's been unreachable. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that would be, it would be one from ATAX and one from BOZA.
Okay. All right.
So in terms of specifics for the process moving forward, I'll lay out what we've done in the past and let you know what my recommendations are for now, and then we can figure out, what changes this committee might want to make. Previously, what we've done is identified, very similar to a hiring process, we've identified a short list of the folks that we think are most qualified for the vacancies based on what we can see on the applications. We've invited those individuals to interview with us and conducted a structured interview, giving everybody the same questions to keep everything very fair and objective. And then from there, we've deliberated and determined who we felt like was the best fit for the openings on the boards and commissions. And one step I left out is we typically try to speak with, as Desiree mentioned, Douglas, as well as the members of the commissions and boards. I guess we did this once already, this existing committee, right? Was that okay? Time is so weird now in this era of coronavirus, where I don't know if it's been a month or 2 years at this point.
It was earlier this year. We had 2 vacancies, 2 unexpired terms.
Right. Right. So this committee's been through it, so I don't have to explain it. I will say that in reflection and speaking with the city administrator, I felt like we could probably cut down the interview time and the interview questions and probably shorten it to 2 or 3 questions, and try to keep those interviews to under 30 minutes to some, aiming for 15 to 20 minutes per interview, because this is a very important role. These are individuals who are helping guide the city in very important strategic ways. So I don't want to make light of the importance of this duty, but it's also not the same thing as hiring a chief of police. And so acknowledging the difference between those 2 things and giving each their due amount of time and due diligence.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Just so, to me, the Planning Commission over the past few years has done some incredible improvements to our city when it comes to like drainage and lot size and lot coverage. I mean, they've really made some great strides in improving our community, looking into the future. So to me, they are all very, very important.
Absolutely. Thank you. Totally agree. And they've been fantastic. And we'll certainly miss the three that are leaving, and grateful for the expertise that remains on that commission. So moving, I guess, in terms of next steps that I see for this committee is to determine the short list of candidates. Could be everybody who's on this list who has applied that we interview for each of these boards and commissions, or we could decide to shorten it. And in any case, once we have our list of candidates that I think we can discuss once I wrap up with my kind of outline of the process, we'd want to work on scheduling dates for those interviews with these candidates. Desiree, can you give us an idea of when we should plan to make recommendations to City Council? I'm assuming we're going to kind of aim for that special December meeting.
Yes, we're looking at December 8th
Okay.
for that meeting where those recommendations will be presented to full council.
Okay. So just to restate everything we've got, we have Planning Commission with 3 vacancies and 6 applicants. ATAX with 3 vacancies and 5 applicants, possibly 6.
Yeah, so Chris Marquez, we did talk to him.
I'm sorry, I forgot to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
3 vacancies with 5 applicants for Planning Commission. 3 vacancies with either 5 or 6 applicants for ATAX, and 1 vacancy with 2 or 3 applicants for BOZA. Councilmember Streetman and Mayor Carroll, first of all, maybe reactions to the process, and then we can talk about how we want to move with the shortlisted candidates.
Mr. Chair, I'm good with the process that you're suggesting here that we, I guess, used before the Planning Commission several months ago. In regards to the ATAX group, is there a selection criteria? Do you have to have certain qualifications to serve on that committee? Is it how do we go about looking at the mix or the makeup of that committee?
Thanks for bringing that up, because I totally neglected to get to do that. Desiree, will you please speak to that?
Yeah. So the ATAX committee is the only one that includes by law some requirements of the industry or the industry that they represent. And those recommendations include that 2 of the members must be from the lodging industry. 1 shall represent a cultural organization. And that's really the only, those are really the only requirements. So out of the 7 members, 2 need to be from the lodging industry, and 1 needs to represent the cultural organization.
Okay.
And where do we stand with our current makeup now?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Just wondering.
That is work that hasn't. I need to do that. I need to do that research to identify of the current 3 members, if they are part of the 3 that represent these lodging or cultural. I know that the cultural organization is represented by another member whose term is not expiring. I believe some of these do represent lodging, but let me look into that and get back to you all with a concrete information on how those requirements.
What would be an example of representing the cultural industry?
It's very broad, and I think in the past it was done as the member that was appointed as representing a cultural organization was Rusty Williamson, who is a photographer. So I think that, if I recall correctly, that was that appointment. But again, it's very broad, and sometimes we do have issues filling those positions because they're they can be a little, particularly for the lodging industry, can be a little specific. But I need to look into that, and I'm sorry that I didn't before this meeting.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I think that could negate, and I guess because it's a legal mandate from the state, if we have a lodging vacancy and we only have one candidate that's a lodging representative,
Mhm.
they're by law shoo-in.
Mr.
Okay.
Chair,
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
cultural and photography, is that a profession that somebody does? Or is it somebody who just takes a lot of pictures?
Again, I don't know. I think that year the city didn't have a whole lot of applications and interest in filling that vacancy. And if I recall correctly, this was several years ago, but if I recall correctly, that was who was appointed to fill that seat, representing a cultural organization. Might be a stretch, but I know that was that was where we were when that first appointment was made.
Thank you. I just trying to get a better grasp of cultural, because there's really a broad spectrum as for somebody in the arts, or is it somebody at the museums? Is it somebody with history? Just there's so many varieties of cultural. So thank you.
Well, you know, Ray Burns is you look at his application, it includes he's from the short-term rental a management company. So I think that would apply for, you know, being in the lodging industry.
That's easy.
Okay. But we don't know if we need a lodging.
Well, the majority needs to be from the hospitality industry. Two of them need to be from lodging.
Got it. Okay. Any comments on potential short lists for? Let's start with planning. Go by planning commission and determine if. To me, the obvious individual that could be in flux is Ray Burns, because for that very reason that we might need him on ATAX to fulfill a legal obligation. So my take would be, once city staff has had a chance to see what the makeup is and what our needs are, that we might remove him from consideration for planning commission and for the sake of placing on the ATAX.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
I'm very pleased that Desiree reached out to Douglas to get some of his thoughts and recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
And I rely heavily on what Douglas says and what he feels we need on the planning commission. So I'll rely heavily on his recommendations.
Do you have a specific recommendation pursuant to that?
Well, I think I heard 3 different names that he thought were qualified for what our needs are. And I think they were David Cohen and Stephen Corney, who are both engineers,
Mm-hmm.
and Alexander Sandy Stone,
Mm-hmm.
who it represents probably one of the larger rental companies on all farms.
Yeah.
Who truly understands the rental business and has been a tremendous help to the city.
Yeah.
When we were looking at rental, changes and stuff. So those would be my 3 recommendations.
Okay.
I agree.
So if I may be so bold, what you're saying is, perhaps because we have 3 openings and 3 solid recommendations from from Douglas, that perhaps we don't need to schedule interviews.
I would make that as a recommendation.
And and having interviewed Corney and Cohen on previous occasions, and knowing Sandy Stone for, I don't know, 20 or more years, and invested how he's already contributed to all of the different. He's worked with the Planning Commission previously with the rental. I would certainly agree with that. I guess for my take, I took a look at Jeffrey Rubin's application, and I think is probably would be, if anybody, we're so fortunate with all the applications that we get. He's a relatively new resident to the island, even though he's owned a home out here for a long time. But I would tend to agree if Douglas has said these are the three people that are the best suited. I think we could probably move forward with those. Yeah, go ahead, Russ.
Yeah, I would agree also. I don't know David or Stephen, but I would defer to you, Mr. Chairman, and of course, the mayor, that, I mean, you both know them and know their qualifications. So, I mean, I think that's absolutely the right thing to do. And of course, Sandy Stone, everybody knows Sandy, and he would be a great addition as well. So I'm all in favor here.
All right. Do I hear that in the form of a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Nicole, is that clear for you?
Cohen, Corney, and Stone.
Yes, recommendations to the Planning Commission from the Personnel Committee.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right. With regard to ATAX, it sounds like we need to do a little bit of homework.
Well,
Are you
I
done
will-
while we're waiting?
From the applications that we have so far, obviously we wanted to reach out to Susan again and give her an opportunity to decide whether she wanted to be in the running or not. But Julie's she's the director of property management for Wild Dunes Resort. So again, that's that and her background was instrumental in her original appointment. So that would meet sort of our statutory requirements to have lodging and hospitality industry members. Ray Burns is the owner and manager of Theo's IOP, another rental company. So that would be we would be meeting those two requirements there.
Mhm.
Susan Haney, Margaret Miller, she has a financial background, an auditor, as part of the bank that she works with. So, not necessarily hospitality component, but certainly valuable when it comes to making recommendations of expenses, accommodation tax recommendations and such. Ted McKnight, his application is on they're both Ted McKnight and Douglas Trustlow are attorneys. Applicants. So I don't know if that would be a good group to maybe interview and get their insight and about their interest in serving in ATAX. But I would say Julie Spell and Ray Burns would meet those statutory requirements that the board should meet.
Totally agree, Mr. Chair. And then interview the others.
Okay. So will you make the recommendation that I'm kind of hearing? Just what I think I'm hearing is
I will make
go
a
ahead.
recommendation of Julie Spell and Ray Burns to be recommended for fill these positions, and that we interview the other applicants for that final position.
I second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Just a question. So you'd be interviewing Mr. McKnight, Douglas Trustlow, Margaret Miller, and Susan Haney should she decide she wants to be reconsidered. Okay.
Correct. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. And then BOZA. We've got essentially 2 new applicants. I don't think we have any real, I don't want to say we don't have a choice, but seems like a interview forthcoming. So I'd make a motion that we interview both candidates, the third if they so choose to opt in for the vacancy on BOZA.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And I would direct staff to come up with 2 to 3 interview questions per, based on the, discussions with the existing committees and Douglas in terms of what we think is most needed and most valuable in those respective roles.
We'll do that.
All right. Any other, well, I guess we've made a motion and we voted, right? Is that-
Yes, yes.
All right. That concludes new business, miscellaneous business.
Chair,
Go ahead.
I don't think there was a motion that you introduced about interviewing everybody from BOZA. Was that voted on, Nicole?
It was.
Okay, all right, just making sure.
All right. Desiree, you're making me feel better because I was like, I don't remember voting on that now.
Yeah,
It's
if
like-
you makes everybody feel better.
When there's no roll call, it's like, it's too easy. All right. Miscellaneous business. We know we're going to have a special meeting before 2021, but the next normal meeting would be on, it's not on here, so I'm looking it up.
So if the committee continues to follow the same schedule that we try to follow this year, the next meeting will be in January. However, the special meeting that council will have early January to make a final vote on the appointments for all city officers and boards and commissions, that will happen on Tuesday 5th, January 5th. So I think that the conversation we've had with other committees is that the regular committee meetings in January might be had the week of the 11th, so that if there aren't any changes to the committee assignments and the makeup of the committees, that those would be in place and appointed on the 5th. And so that, we can have the meeting on the 14th or the 13th. And then go back to regular meetings on the first week of the month, starting in February.
Okay. We typically meet on Tuesdays, right? I know today we moved it.
Yeah,
for
you're
the
right.
12th. So Tuesday, the 12th would be the typical time that we would do it. So the next regular meeting, Tuesday, the 12th at 9 a.m.
Me.
Good.
All right. And I don't see any need for executive session. Any other miscellaneous business that I missed?
We were just, I guess, talking by email to find those dates that we're going to be doing the different interviews and times.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I glazed over that. I think coordinating via email. The ideal would be to schedule them in blocks for our sake, for the city staff and for council's sake.
Yeah, we can schedule 2 different blocks, one for the ATAX folks and then for BOZA. And if we keep them between 15, 20 minutes, I think it's very manageable.
Perfect.
That's good.
All right. Do I hear any final motions here?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Record at 9:15.